Today we talk about Thunderbolt Apache Leader, the best game of 2012 and 2011 and 2010, and just one of the best games that were ever made. And if this sounds too objective, too presumptuous to you, well then let's look at it in a subjective way. This is one of my favorite games of all times. This is pretty much my introduction. I'm not going to say much more. You can research more details and technical things about the game if you so wish, but I want to keep my introduction short to have more time to show you the masterpiece that this game is. Your games of Thunderbolt Apache Leader will be represented by campaigns. Each campaign will include several missions and will be represented by a card, such as this one, representing recent or future and hypothetical conflicts. Each campaign gives you an evaluation chart telling you how well or poorly you did based on the amount of points that you gained in the game. Then you have the set of 10 terrain tiles that you will select from a stack, a specific deck of tiles, and those are the 10 tiles that you will use in the missions that you will fly in that campaign. You may have special instructions at the bottom of the card. And very important, you have setup victory points. This is the amount of victory points that the enemy force that you're facing is worth. You have 3 decks of enemy forces: assault battalions, support battalions, and command battalions. At the beginning of each campaign, you will start drawing cards in the following order: 2 assault battalions, a support, and a command, and then you repeat. You repeat this as many times as it takes. Each battalion has a certain amount of victory points that it is worth, and you keep repeating the procedure until you have a total amount of victory points here that is equal to or higher than the setup victory point amount specified on the campaign card. So this way you have the enemy force that you will face. As you can see, enemy battalions have a code here. This one, for example, is 6A, 4C, etc. For each such battalion, you will find the corresponding counter, and you will place the counter for the enemy battalions, the counters for the enemy battalions on this display here. Usually, assault battalions start in this band here. Here you have support battalions and command battalions, but there may be situations in which you place them in different areas. Now, the very cool thing here is that, well, like in other games in the series, of course, different bands have different effects. For example, the farther you fly, the less weapons you can carry because you have a weight penalty, the more stress you get. But the very cool concept here is that at the end of a day, after you have attacked as many battalions as you have chosen to, the enemy battalions may move. You roll on a specific table, and the enemy battalions may hold their position, stay where they are, or they may retreat by one band, or, very cool here, they may advance. And the closer they get to your airbase, which is represented by this band here, the worse things are for you, because when they get close to you, you have to start paying a penalty in special operation points. In this band, 1 point for each enemy battalion present in that band, and here 3 points for each enemy battalion in your airbase area. If there is a time in the game in which you need to pay a special operation point because of this penalty here or because of other game effects, and you do not have enough points to pay for that penalty, then you lose the game immediately. So you have your campaign cards, but then the campaign card that you chose for this campaign will be paired with a situation card. Yes, a card that tells you the type of operation that you're going to conduct in that area. You may have general war, surge, holding action, show of force, cut off, very cool. Your air base has been cut off from your main force. You have to fight to reopen supply lines. You may have rapid deployment. Each situation gives you a different amount of starting special operation points, different length, different rules about the number of daily special operation points that you may receive automatically or not. There are just different ways in which special operation points may be assigned to you day after day. Other special rules and flavored text to tell you about the situation. Like in previous games in the series, you have different models of aircraft represented by cards, and there really are many different models that you can mix and match. You can form different types of groups. Different models will fly and fight in different ways. Now, in the previous games in the Air Leader series, the aircraft cards would also tell you the abilities of the pilot that is flying that aircraft. Not anymore. Now pilots are represented by separate cards, which is an awesomely cool concept. As you can see, you have different types of pilot for different models of aircraft that are available. Each pilot is represented by 3 cards representing 6 possible levels of experience of that pilot, from green to ace. And each pilot has individual combinations of stats, of points, of strength and weaknesses, different stats indicating the reaction speed of the pilot, which may be slow or fast. Modifiers, possible modifiers with cannons and strikes, that is when you're attacking an enemy in the same X where the aircraft is. Modifiers for standoff attacks, when you're attacking enemies not in your same X. Possible modifiers for cool. The cool factor is what may modify the stress that the pilot experiences in a mission. Stats for the amount of stress points that a pilot may receive before the pilot becomes shaken, and after that, above that amount, the pilot is unfit to fly. And some pilots also have an evasive ability here. And then of course you need to equip your planes with weapons, and you simply place the counters that you choose to carry with you on the cards representing the airplanes. Now, each weapon has a cost which may be of 1 or 0. It is that number there. It takes 10 such cost points to equal 1 special option point. So by spending a special option point, you can carry up to 10 weapons that cost 1. That means that good weapons are not too expensive in this game. You can really load a lot of them on your airplanes, but trust me, you will need them. You will need good weapons here. Here you have the weight of the weapon in weight points, and then the number in the top right corner of each counter is the number to hit. When you're attacking, you expend the counter, you roll 1d10, you apply all modifiers that apply, for example coming from your pilots or from the quality of the target, and other factors may also apply. If the modified result is equal to or higher than the number to hit, then you destroy the target. It is that simple. Now, as you can see, some numbers are very low. That means that unless there's severe negative modifiers, you should be able to hit your target automatically. However, here there are many targets on the board. On average, I find that there are more targets that you have to destroy here than in previous games in the series. So yes, you have more effective weapons, you fire more often, you hit more often, but after that you still have a lot of enemies on the board that are ready to fire at you. When you reach the target, you place the tiles for that target randomly, so the terrain will change from mission to mission. Then you pick up the enemy counters that form the battalion that you're facing. The mix of enemies is indicated on that card, and you roll 1d10 to determine the location of each. 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. So you place those enemies on the board randomly. Then you place your planes on the board in any of the 8 edge axes at the beginning of the mission, of the scenario, and they must be facing the X that they will enter next turn in which they move. Some also have the opportunity of hover, and if they're hovering, they're placed in the middle of the X. Otherwise, if they're moving, they have to face the X that they are entering next turn. And aircraft can be flying at high altitude or low altitude. You have to commit to that at the beginning of the activation of your planes. At the beginning of each turn, you must draw pop-up counters. You draw one for each of your planes that is flying high. So the more there are people that are flying high, the more attention you attract, because when you draw pop-up counters, yes, you may draw no enemies, so nothing happens, but you may also draw a counter that indicates that a new enemy has joined the fight. In that case, you simply roll 1d10 to determine the location of the new unit that you add to the board. That's it. They literally pop up out of nowhere. That's scary, and of course can be pretty dangerous to you. After that, you roll on a table to see if some of your opponents are going to seek cover. If the roll indicates an X where there are units that can take cover and there are ridges, the units will move to those ridges. As you can see, these are the ridges, and units that are in cover can only be attacked by planes that are in the same hex. You cannot use standoff attacks against them. Now, ridges, these are very important. If you're flying high, you do not have to worry about the ridges, but as I said, you attract attention of pop-up counters, and also enemies have a line of sight to you across ridges. If you're flying low, they cannot attack you across ridges. So flying low has an advantage there, better cover, less attention, but of course if you're flying low, flying across ridges is more dangerous. Then you have to roll on the ridge evasion table, and your pilot will receive stress from attempting such a maneuver, and you know that when your pilots are too stressed, things are dangerous. So you roll for cover. Then your fast pilots will get to act. They will move and attack, or attack and move, or move, attack and move again. You can attack at any time during movement. You attack by spending weapon counters, and you follow the instructions that apply to each weapon that you're using. Then the enemies will activate. If you have helicopters, they will move, trying to reach you and to fire at you. Land units do not move, they simply fire at you if they can. And they will do so based on the range, which may be up to 3 or maybe 0, it depends on the number under the their attack number. And the attack number indicates the amount of hit counters that you draw for that unit when the unit is attacking you, and also that number indicates the type of damage, which may be red or yellow. So the enemies in this game do not roll dice, they simply draw counters from this mix here, and for each counter you apply the side that applies yellow or red. And for example, you may have stress that is added to your pilot. Also, if the counter indicates the model that is being attacked, you can ignore the effect. It is a no effect, otherwise you apply the effect normally. So there can be stress, but, and this is pretty interesting, there can be a large variety of other effects. Bullet holes, damage to your cannon, a penalty to your attack factor, damage to the display, damage to the structure. Too many of these will simply destroy your airplane. Just different types of damage, and these really create a lot of interesting situations. It is not just a matter of being destroyed or not destroyed, losing points or not losing points. It is a matter of your aircraft behaving differently after damage is inflicted, and different types of damages will force you to react in different ways. After the enemy's attack, your slow pilots get to move and attack, and then you start another turn. You only have a limited amount of turns that you can spend on the target. You have to leave before you run out of fuel. That is very important. And when the mission is over, because you left the target, you look at the battalion card and at the amount of enemy points still on the board. Enemy points are indicated in the top left corner of the counters. When you destroy a counter, you flip it like this. You look at the numbers that are still there. If that amount of number is equal to or less than the first number here, then you have half the enemy battalion. If it is equal to or less than the second number, you have destroyed the enemy battalion, and you can remove the counter from the display that I showed you earlier. You have destroyed the battalion entirely. If it is halved, you flip it to its half side, and you can attack it later again. This is an exceptional game. The quality of the game is off the charts. One of the things that I like the most and that really give the game its personality is the fact that the game is bursting with options, with decisions. You choose the types of aircraft that you're flying, and you choose the pilots, and then you choose how to combine them. And you choose your campaign, and you choose the type of mission that you have in that campaign. You choose how to use your resources day after day. There are many things that you can do with your resources. You can spend resources to repair your damaged aircraft. You can even use parts of an aircraft you're not using anymore to repair another aircraft. You can replace your pilots that are just too freaked out to ever fly again. But all of these things are expensive. You can spend points to buy upgrades, but if then you do not have points, special option points, it is not a matter of just, oh well, I will not have points to spend in the future. You may lose the game. So there is a lot at stake here. A lot of decisions that you have to make in the longer run when you're really managing the campaign from a sort of like detached point of view. And then of course fantastic variety of decisions that you have to make when you're right there in the battlefield. Because these battles here are much more dynamic, much more organic, much more fluid than you had in previous games in the series. I mean, this is definitely the best game in the Air Leader series. What is fascinating here is that you do not have just a main direction in which you're going, with a target in the middle of the display like it used to be in other games. Here the targets are all over the place, and they may be in different locations from mission to mission. So you have to move around, you have to choose your point of entry, which is really crucial. You have to decide who is going where in which moment, and of course you have to deal with the continuous flow and unpredictable events that are going to happen. Enemies popping out of nowhere, enemies taking cover and make it impossible now for you to hit with that fantastic weapon that you had carried and you cannot use anymore because of the situation. A lot of decisions, just a lot of dynamism going on all the time, a lot of action, and really this is interesting. This is a different thing in the than what you have in previous games. A lot of action, meaning a lot of firing, a lot of explosions. They start blowing up all the time. You have very powerful weapons, so you will hit very often, you will destroy a lot of enemies. But now the point again is not to destroy a single target, it is to destroy almost everything that you have on the board. So you do need to fire a lot, and even after you destroyed a lot of enemies, there are still enemies that are coming out of nowhere, still enemies ready to fire at you, still enemies giving a lot of damage. And even though the first missions may feel easy because of this, because you invest a lot, then your pilots become less efficient, your aircraft get a lot of damage, and you have decisions to make there. And the game becomes increasingly tense as the campaign progresses. At the same time, you have all of these options, and the game doesn't feel fiddly at all. Everything is really well factored in. Think of the damages that you can receive. There's all the flavor and theme and challenges that will come from the fact that some of your aircraft will take a type of damage and other types of damage, and yet everything is there. You do not need to consult out of tables. You just look at the counters. Everything is written there. There are very well organized tables and reminders all around the board. Everything is functional. Everything here is very functional. It's really aimed at enriching and emphasizing gameplay. Gameplay here is king. This is really an immersive experience with a lot of action, and it's really a summer blockbuster movie that you are watching, well, not even with 3D glasses, but from within a virtual reality simulator. This is how much you feel that you're part of the action. Thunderbolt Apache Leader, in conclusion, is just a fantastic game. I cannot think a negative thing about it. I've had an amazing time playing it. You know the annoying question, if you were to go on a desert island with only one game, which game would that be? I always try to avoid that question because I don't have an answer, but now I do. Now I do. If I were stuck on a desert island with only one game for the rest of my life, I think that this game should be the one. I think I could keep playing this game for a long time, and maybe even just this one only, exploring all the possibilities that it has, and still keep my sanity. This is how amazing this game is, and this is the amazing amount of replay value that the game has. Thunderbolt Apache Leader is simply a perfect game.